One of the new and very difficult questions in the IELTS speaking test is all about cakes. In this video, we're going to look at 2 questions about cakes. Can you make cakes? And did you eat cakes a lot as a child? And I'm going to give you perfect Band 9 answers so that you're totally prepared for your IELTS speaking test. So, let's get started. I'm Francis from Last Minute English. I used to be an IELTS examiner, and on this channel, I help you to pass your English exams like IELTS and Duolingo, and I help you to reach advanced level English. So if that sounds good, make sure to hit the subscribe button. So this video is all about that new IELTS speaking topic of cakes. It's a part 1 topic, and I think it's quite difficult. It seems easy, but when you actually try to talk about cakes, sometimes it's hard to know what to say. So we're going to do 3 things in this video. First, I'm going to give you some advice and tips on how to answer these questions. Secondly, we'll look at some vocabulary, some high-level vocabulary to help you get those better scores. And finally, I'll give you the full Band 9 answers and we'll talk through them together. So the first tip I want to give you is to use a mix of tenses in your answer. Don't just use the present simple tense. Now, particularly for the question about when you were a child, did you like to eat cakes as a child? It's really important to use lots of past simple tense and maybe the past continuous as well. And my second tip is related to that. It's a good opportunity to use some slightly higher level grammar, like I would as a past habit. So we'll see in my answer later where we use I would as a past habit. But it's really important to use those kinds of grammar, variety in your grammar, because that will allow the examiner the chance to give you a higher score. Now, the second thing for us to talk about is high-level vocabulary. So, when you're taking the IELTS speaking test, it's really important to do 2 different types of high-level vocabulary. One of them is very specific words, that's what we're going to look at first, and the other is more colloquial language. That's things like idioms and collocations. They don't have to be very complicated, long words, but they have to sound very natural, like a native speaker is using them. So then first, some specific vocabulary. So you'll see me later in the answers use labor intensive and time intensive. Both of those mean we use a lot. Intensive, we use a lot of that thing. Labor intensive, it needs a lot of work. Time intensive, it needs a lot of time. And that's a nice specific piece of vocabulary. The other one is taste tester. Taste tester. That's the person who they try the thing and they see, is it good or not? And then the third type of specific vocabulary is the names of different cakes. Now, you'll see in my answer we've used some different cake names. And my challenge for you today is to tell me under the video in the comments, what is your favorite type of cake? And do you know the name for it in English? You can write your favorite cake down here. Then let's talk about some more colloquial language. So the first one we're going to look at is opt for. I'll opt for something. That means I'll choose that thing. Number 2 is wash it down. We usually say wash it down with, and then we say a type of drink. So that's like if you're eating something that's quite dry, you need to drink some water to help it go down. That's to wash it down. Then number 3 is on the go. On the go means that you're going to different places, you're never having a rest, you're very busy. And finally, put time aside. If you put time aside, it means you save some time to do a special activity. Now let's take a look at the first question. So, can you make cakes? Now you can see on the screen that I've got my answer. And this is going to be a Band 9 answer for a few reasons. The first one, it's got great vocabulary and it's got perfect grammar. But also, we're going to focus on the pronunciation. And you can see some of the words are in bold, so those are the words we're going to emphasize. And some of the words are underlined. Those are the words we're going to go very quickly, because they're less important words. So let's go sentence by sentence. We'll practice it, and then at the end, I'm going to read it for you again so that you can follow. Okay? Let's do the first sentence. I'm not much of a baker, to be honest. Now that to be honest, it's not to be honest, it's to be honest. I'm not much of a baker, to be honest, but it's definitely, stress on definitely, but it's definitely something I'd like to get into in the future. But it's definitely something I'd like to get into in the future. Right now, I'm on the go most of the time. So, most of the time. Most of the time becomes most of the time. So it's really hard to put. It's really hard to put. So it's not to put, it's to put. It's really hard to put time aside for fairly labor-intensive and time-intensive hobbies like baking. So we're putting stress on labor-intensive and time-intensive because those words are important for the meaning of this sentence. I remember making cakes with my mum when I was growing up, but my role was mostly as the taste tester. So as the taste tester, mostly as the taste tester. Plus I'd make sure the bowl was licked clean afterwards. Plus I'd make sure. Now this is kind of a joke, so we're really emphasizing it. I'd make sure the bowl was licked clean afterwards. So I'm going to read the answer again, sentence by sentence, and I'll leave a short pause after each sentence for you to stop the video and say, okay? So this is an interactive video. I want you to take part. So, can you make cakes? I'm not much of a baker, to be honest, but it's definitely something I'd like to get into in the future. Your turn. Pause and read it like I did. Good. Right now, I'm on the go most of the time, so it's really hard to put time aside for fairly labor-intensive and time-intensive hobbies like baking. Your turn. Very good. I remember making cakes with my mum when I was growing up, but my role was mostly as the taste tester. Plus, I'd make sure the bowl was licked clean afterwards. Your turn. Okay, very good. Then let's move on to the second question. So, did you like to eat cakes as a child? So, let's go through sentence by sentence. So, yeah, I loved cakes as a kid. So, it's not as a kid, it's as a kid. As a kid. I loved cakes as a kid. And I still love them now, to be honest. Notice again, to be honest. Fixed expressions like that, those quite often are said very quickly. Most of the time, to be honest. I still love them now, to be honest. I remember as a kid, my favorite cake was always something relatively simple and sugary, like a fairy cake or a Victoria sponge. So, those are some examples of the names of cakes. Remember, that's one type of specific vocabulary that you can use. But as I've gotten older, so it's as I have gotten older, which is the present perfect tense, so ding for grammar, but we're squashing it together. As I've gotten older, my tastes have definitely matured a bit. And you can see again that the word definitely is stressed because it's a strong feeling. These days, I'd typically opt for something a bit richer, like a red velvet cake or a coffee cake. So, red velvet cake, or a coffee cake. So the tone of those is quite high. A red velvet cake or a coffee cake. Anad, so it's not and I'd, I'd usually wash it down with a nice cappuccino. Okay, so let's take a go through again. Again, I'm going to read each sentence. I'll leave a short pause and then you can read it. So, sentence 1. Yeah, I loved cakes as a kid, and I still love them now, to be honest. Your turn. Good. I remember as a kid, my favourite cake was always something relatively simple and sugary, like a fairy cake or a Victoria sponge. But as I've gotten older, my tastes have definitely matured a bit. These days, I'd typically opt for something a bit richer, like a red velvet cake or a coffee cake. Your turn. And I'd usually wash it down with a nice cappuccino. All right, very good. So these are 2 Band 9 IELTS Speaking Part 1 answers. Now, you can use these kind of however you want. If you want to kind of learn them and memorize them, you can do that. I don't recommend that because if the examiner knows that you are saying something memorized, then they're not going to give you a high score. But what you can do, which is a better idea, is take some of the sentences from this and add your own details. For example, change the names of the cakes that you like. And you can take other individual sentences or parts of sentences and memorize those. That is going to be okay for the examiner. But when it's a full answer that's memorized, that's not really good. Now, these 2 answers are part of a very special product that we have, which is our IELTS Speaking New Answer package. And that has all of the questions and all of the answers from the latest IELTS speaking season. And you can get that for free on our website, and the link is just down here. Now, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it useful, make sure to like and subscribe because we're going to release lots more of videos like this, so you don't want to miss out. And if you want to keep improving your English, we've got loads of great courses available, and all of the links and details are down here under the video. I'm Francis. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.